And put your question.
Now we're talking from Khaled University. My question goes to Mr. Innocent, because I'm really interested in the results of the study you mentioned about cross-border trade and trade corridors. So what kind of obstacles did you actually identify for this low level of trade between the Nile Basin countries? Is it that these countries are following protectionist policies, or is it the fact that their economies are not integrated in the first place, contrary to the assumption that we always made that these countries can actually cooperate and integrate? And what kind of recommendations then did you conclude out of this study? And have you noticed any progress in the last few years about the implementation of these recommendations?
Okay, we'll take 3 questions and then come back. So maybe we'll go to that side and I will come back to you and I will come back to you.
Thanks to all presenters. I have 2 questions. One short question to Dr. Ahmed Khaled. I will request an answer. Another question to all presenters. If they feel they don't want to answer me, I'm happy with that. So Dr. Ahmed Khaled, you keep saying finance. Where does the money come from? To other presenters, could you please, I'm just requesting a conceptual clarity. Are we talking about organizations or institutions?
Thank you. Very clear and very. It will be number 4. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions. One to Dr. Wubalem and Innocent. And then the second to probably the organizers, but also to the presenters, and then one to Dr. Ahmed. I like the idea of Wubalem. We say we have to do more with less. I think that's very important, and Innocent also capitalize on that. But that requires innovation. That requires introduction of technologies. That requires capacity building, awareness creation. That requires even change of crop types in our agriculture system. We should not do kind of business as usual agriculture system. So my question to all of you is whether NBI and regional organizations are now pushing this idea in each country to really improve our efficiency in terms of innovation, technology, crop choice, etc. That's one. The second issue maybe that also includes the organizers. You said that the population will be 1 billion in 2050. And that 1 billion will not be rural. A larger portion of the population will be urban. So in 2050, globally, we will have about 70% of the population will be in urban areas. That is the global prediction. And that means the demand for water, the demand for food, the demand for power, the demand for all kinds of construction material, energy will be changed. So is the NDPI really addressing this issue? What does it mean for NDPI, for our water supply, for water, food production, etc.? That's one element. The second element is, are we managing our consumption? You know, just a couple of days, I was looking the way we eat our lunch, the way we eat our breakfast. We are wasting food. And that means we are wasting our water, scarce water resources, scarce energy. And with urbanization, and if we continue wastage of resources, if we continue mismanaging our consumption of all, energy, food, etc., I think, I don't think we will deal with the scarce resource and with the changing environment, and how we will bring the urbanization issue in this whole Nile Basin context. That's the second question. The third is about,
Sorry. The researchers, they are really short with that.
okay. The whole issue of unlocking, and that is a land management issue. Ahmed, you focus, I think that's very important. There are quite huge areas that we can rehabilitate, but there are also huge areas we can prevent. The conservation aspects always forgotten. And of course, the whole issue of experience sharing, I think we need to also focus on conservation. That's it.
Thank you very much. So now we have first the answer for the first questions, and who will take the lead first? And please try, if there are similar questions of a similar nature, deal with them. So maybe we start with
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just to answer the first question about what have we found as a barrier for this regional trade and what are the proposed measures. Because the reports are there on our information system, anybody can upload them, but here I wanted just to summarize. The barrier between trade and on trade between the Nile Basin countries, we found there were, well, at least three types. First of all, we found there was a cultural barrier, especially between the Nile country and the Eastern Nile countries. There is no traditional cultural exchange. The second was, of course, infrastructure. There were not enough really to allow free movement of commodities between the, let's say, between the two subregsions itself, but also the lack of adequate policies to promote food trade and to facilitate food movement. Though under COMESA we have that facility, but it seems it is not really being enough exploited. What was suggested is, first of all, I think it's important that we have a basin food security policy. As a basin, countries need really to look at what are their needs and how they can address these food needs, considering that they have limited water resources. The second is that really we need to increase infrastructure. If we really are looking at what is happening in the power trade with the interconnection line we have, NBI has contributed to build, that's really a good sign that if there were such infrastructure on the road, for example, trade can be improved, especially food commodity trade. And then we need also exchange of best practices. I think there are really good practices, especially we realize that in Egypt, for example, the yield of rice is more than 10 tons, while in the Nile countries, the maximum is 6. How can we exchange that and increase food in this country so that really we have enough food in the region? I think these are some areas, but as I said, there are really more information in the reports. There is an issue which was raised about, the different changes we are expecting in the Nile Basin, especially increased population and then also increased urbanization, and how NBI can address it. I mentioned the four function of the NBI: cooperation, water resource management, the water development. I think NBI can not do everything. So we need to recognize that we need to link closely with our regional bodies. If we are talking about water, domestic water, I think there are really regional economic communities that are looking at that. But LDBC, for example, for the Nile countries, like Victoria Basin Commission, is addressing that. How can we best link with them to ensure that all these issues are addressed? I think what is important is really to link with other regional bodies to ensure that things that NBI can do can be done in the basin.
Do you have any answer for Professor Atta, where he asked him second question, organization versus institutions? You will come to it? Okay, okay. Then the floor is yours. And then we'll take the second.
Very interesting questions, but I mean, Professor Atta's question is very important and it has been close to my heart. I'll come to it. But I think we should also talk about food security. Food security is not food self-sufficiency or whatever. But the more the economy grows and diversifies, we become more food secure. So I think that's to say we don't need to produce all the food, we need to consume it. We can import it, we can trade it. So economic growth is one sure way of ensuring food security. Usually, and history also teaches us, that countries cooperate when on those things in which they have scarcity, not in which they have abundance. I always mention the experience of post-World War Europe, World War II Europe. During the reconstruction, after that devastating Second World War, they were running short of steel and energy, coal. So the EU started essentially around these two things, around these two commodities, which were very scarce during the reconstruction period. And the rest is history. We have scarcity, water scarcity, and that can be, if we act rationally and very strategically, a reason for cooperating and a reason for regional integration. It can be an entry point. That's often the case. I would have loved to spend more time on it, but I should move on to Professor Atta's question, because that's very important. The distinction is not academic. In the last NBDF, I posed a question, a hypothetical question in my panel, and everybody was smiling. I asked one question. I gave them two scenarios. One, it was announced that in the entire Nile Basin, all churches and mosques would be destroyed, and the people were celebrating. And everybody looked at me quizzically. Another scenario, it was announced that NBI would be dismantled and will not be operational from this day. And the people revolted, and there was a riot and a civil war across the basin. I asked this, I brought forth these two scenarios to articulate the distinction between what an institution and an organization is. An institution is something that has been accepted in the hearts and minds of people, and they believe they cannot live without it. I always am very careful talking about institutionalized cooperation. NBI is not an institution yet. Even in each one of us, the concept of cooperation is not yet institutionalized. And yet, if you don't have this normative leap, we cannot cooperate. So it goes deep into our psyche, into our behavioral part. Organization it is. Organizations are not necessarily institutions. But we have to grow into that, which means you have to bring a culture of, it goes into even into how you design your curriculums, your education systems, and so forth. So in other words, institutionalized cooperation is a must. It's not prescribed by law, but if it is written in our minds and hearts, then it's an institution. NBI is not yet. I think we would be fooling ourselves. Thank you.
Very good. More or less quickly. Doing more with less in a very short time.
Yeah, this is about efficiency.
Yeah.
We have energy footprint, we have water footprint. These conversations are there. NBI is not going to do everything. NBI is not about everything. I think we have to cut bites, that's enough for us. But if we can demonstrate, and that was the design of the NBI, in NSAP we started on low-hanging fruit, those small, for example, the Ethiopia-Sudan interconnection project, now it has gone up to the maximum of 300, up to 300 megawatts of energy is being traded during the times. There is more trade between Sudan and Ethiopia. There is a road interconnection. People are moving faster and better. So regional integration can have entry points from many advantages. And ENTRO is not about, of course, road and transportation building or facilitating agricultural trade and so forth. But water is the sole entry point for us, and that can catalyze regional integration, and other actors can come into the show.
Okay, thank you. But he brought also innovation, which is very important. Ahmed, you have two. You have the finance from where? Maybe in your pocket, I don't know. And the second one, unlocking.
Well, thank you. I think for the finance issue, if you see the last, at the end of the slide, I talk about the enabling environment. And finance not only from these transnational institutions or FDIs, finance could be also from the private sector. Those can take a risk usually not taken by the international. So I think by enabling environment, finance will come in. The money is there, and I attended some international conferences on economical forums, and the investors saying this clearly. We have the money, but we need the environment. We need clear policies, legislations, and clear, we want our money back, so that is the issue. On the soft part, I mentioned the ALSF, which could be very helpful for the land grabbing issues, because they help in contracts and concessions. And the legal part is very important to land grabbing issues. So those money is there. Today, if Sudan or Ethiopia or anyone applied for those funds are there to help to support the countries, the member countries, to negotiate and to advise their contracts and give the good deals, get good deals for themselves. So these windows are there. There is a regional windows in this, by the way, in these multinational banks. This ADB especially, they have that regional window. Sometimes they give priority to those regional projects. If you have a regional projects, they give you priority. Even they cannot take from you, they raise your ceiling for that, because they consider it as a regional project. So if you restructure it in a way that could meet their needs, the money is there. So the other issue is issue related to conservation. I agree with Getty. I think conservation is an issue, and one of the approach we said, the first one is sustainability, how to balance ecosystem with the environment and economics. So that is very critical, and you have to have a very operational approach, integrated approach. You call it nexus, you call it whatever, but you have to have it agreed, approved, operationalized. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think now we have Leah. Leah, we'll come to you later on, and number 3 there. We'll come to you. Yeah. So, start, yes.
Okay, thank you. My question is, the first one is for 3 of you. I mean, you said that agriculture has not received the attention it deserves, and considering that when Nile Basin Initiative was established, one of the primary objectives is to achieve food security in the basin. Why do you think? I mean, there are a lot of analysis on that one, but just to hear from straight from the horse's mouth, why do you think that agriculture has been lagging behind compared to the other projects? The second one is for the executive director. When you discuss about the NBI sustainability framework, you identified, you said that there are 4 strategic directions. Most of them are hard projects. Where are the soft projects? Because we always talk about lack of confidence, trust, enabling environment in the Nile Basin Initiative. There were confidence building and stakeholder involvement in the past. Why there is no such kind of project to facilitate all these key strategy directions? Because we need trust and confidence building in as a primary factor. Thank you.
2 quick questions. One to Dr. Innocent. When the negotiations for the CFA collapsed, and the World Bank and the other donors, put back, there was a lot of thinking of a doomsday for NBI, that NBI is really gone now that the donors, the World Bank and the UNDP are gone. The fact is that the NBI is still there, but to what extent has that affected it, and how did NBI manage to proceed and go ahead after the pull out of the World Bank, UNDP and other donors? The second question is to Dr. Wubalem, and maybe Ahmed can also jump in. You mentioned in one of the slides about the joint cooperation and joint projects between Sudan and Ethiopia. And you mentioned the power purchase, but you had something on irrigation. I'm a little bit intrigued to find out more about what kind of irrigation projects, joint irrigation projects between Sudan and Ethiopia. Where are they? How large is the size? What's grown? Who is growing it? What's financing? And who gets the harvest at the end? Thanks.
Very quick on the enabling environment and the role of the private sector in attracting investments to enhance the development. With the private sector, if we put it only to the private sector, then there is a risk of this greedy private sector in depriving the local population from their basic livelihood elements. So the Addis Ababa Finance Action Plan meetings has discussed that extensively, and there were suggestions of blending finance with innovative public-private partnership to attract more responsible investments in places where development is needed. So you said that the money is there, but when we come to the reality, we see everyone is complaining that money is not there. So what is your basis that money is there? And institutionally for the NBI, what is missing to transform it from an initiative or transitional body to an institutionalized commission or authority? Thank you.
Okay, so now we have 3 questions. We start with you. Most of the questions raised, your director.
Thank you. The first question was why food security has been lagging. I think it's a question of really of agreeing on what is the core mandate of NBI. Being a water resource management program, so the idea is that really they focus on water resource management than on food production as such, because we found initially that other organizations are doing that. So this is why even until now, food security has not really been under the full mandate of NBI. So it's a principle during its creation. But we are realizing more and more that food security should be integrated in the overall water resource management because of its importance. The second question you are asking, why you are not seeing project on trust building among the project. Here I focused only on agriculture project, but under the core function of cooperation, we had a number of projects, especially before 2012, we had what we call the Shared Vision program, which has a number of projects aiming at promoting trust building and the cooperation. And also, if you look at the water resource management planning and management program, it is still almost under cooperation, because we want to inform the member countries on what is the situation of the Nile now, what are the challenges, and how they can be addressed. So that alone can also contribute to improving cooperation as far as you inform people that can come together and address the issues. The second question is that how NBI was affected by the closing of the trust fund in 2014. Yeah, I would say that indeed NBI was affected, we have seen the number of projects, especially development projects, decreasing. But on the other hand, we saw the number of program and projects on water resource management, they were maintained somehow, not necessarily by the World Bank, but with other donors coming in, like the German Cooperation, the European Union. So, and also the bank is trying to come back. I hope really that, but all will depends on really how we are all together, because some donors, they are requirements that NBI be inclusive. This is what they tell us, and I think this is the purpose of all these discussions. How can we all be together to develop ourselves, but also to be able to benefit from our support from outside.
Okay, thank you very much for joining the delegation.
Okay, since I was party in the confidence building and stakeholder involvement project of the shared vision program, that was one of the earliest programs you see, confidence building and stakeholder involvement, promoting cooperation, the spirit of cooperation is not, it cannot be easily projectized like designing a power transmission project. It's a very soft thing, but it's a very critical. And now, after 2010, it has become very clear, very transparent, among even many development partners, that this is an important thing. How to do it has many ways of doing it. One of the core functions of NBI, like the ED mentioned, is promoting, facilitating cooperation. And I should mention here, for example, CIWI has been very helpful partnering with us in organizing a media training workshop for Eastern Nile. And one of the key roles the media can play is informing. The most important thing is when science is well communicated to policymakers and to the public, that facilitates cooperation and builds confidence. And it avoids fears, unnecessary fears, and excessive politicization of the issues. What we at NBI are trying to do is move the discourse from something like a battle that should be won or lost into a resource management problematic. If we do that, and the communication professionals have an immense role to play. And I think this is going to be more intensified in the next times. How we survived when the CFO was not there, we have Ahmed and it is, especially this, it takes me back to the question of institutionalization. When something's relevance has been appreciated, you cannot kill it easily. And that has been the experience with ENTRO, for example, where the problem was more pronounced. The countries jumped in and started covering the core costs itself. Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia. They contributed and maintained us until we stabilized the situation, and now development partners are coming and the situation is thawing. And that's a little bit of indicator that cooperation is becoming now more a norm, and hopefully it will be institutionalized. About the cooperative investment planning, the irrigation project, for the first time ever, I think, where Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan came together under the Eastern Nile Irrigation and Drainage Project, identified together, worked together, establishing regional working groups. And the first batch of investment took place in all three countries. In the Delta, 25,000, West Delta, 25,000, here in the around Lake Ghana, 7,500, 23,000, I'm sorry. So these have been implemented where funding has been secured. In Sudan, 7,500 beds. So the most important thing is not the scale, but for the first time, the three countries cooperated on a water abstracting project and agreed to seek jointly financing for this without any problem. So I think eventually this will take us further into crop zoning and other strategies in which really we can increase the efficiency of our agricultural systems as on the whole.
Finally, yes. Just let me emphasize the issue of CFA and ENTRO, Nile Basin. 2006-10 we have a strategy in which we define our threats. One of them is this political threats, CFA. And with that we came with a good mitigation measures and we make it operational. That's why we overcome the issue of the CFA. About the private sector. Without the private sector, I think it is a dead end for any development. So you have to enable them to do their part and try to encourage them to do the work. On the finance, in the last 10 years, Sudan built dams. Yes. Now investors are coming. The only issue, the only concern is equity and fairness with this land grant. So the investors are coming with their money, but you have to have enabling environment, you have to have good policies, good negotiation, good contracts. That's the issue. But I heard it from many financiers that we have, but we would like to know the environment in this country, and then we come with our money. How we can get our money back when we finish our jobs. Policies. There are many issues that dealing with the environment of investment, other than them coming and invest. And Africa now is attracting many FDIs, foreign direct investors, and we see them coming. But our role here is to have good policies, fair policies for our communities and for our countries. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now we'll go to another round. Please, because the three for the coming round are already booked. So I hope that you will be in the one after that. That here and the two of you up there will come later on. So please, Yanni, go ahead. Please be short, and the answer should be short to give more rooms for the rest of the colleagues.
Thank you. From today and yesterday's discussion, there is a lot of important messages and refreshment of concepts. My question is, are our policymakers aware of these implications and opportunities of cooperation and these important messages? If they don't know, what are the best channels can we establish to facilitate transfer these messages to them? This question is for all. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Then give the nine out there. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Khaled mentioned in your facts that water is finite. And I quite believe with the current climate change, it may be more finite. What mechanisms have been put in place to make sure that the future generations are protected from this finite resource? Keeping in mind the principle of intergenerational equity. Second question is directed to NPI. Cooperation has been so much recommended, and people came with strong statements like we either swim together or sink together. So what initiatives has NPI put in place to make sure that the regional cooperation is fostered?
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, my question is to Innocent. Thank you for raising or bringing the elephant in the room of virtual water, which I think, having worked on it early in my career and been, one of the, not the founding fathers, that's the wrong term, but I was certainly involved closely with Tony Allen, who sort of originated the idea. Now, what my understanding is that virtual water, if you bring it into the debates on the Nile, which you did, which I think is a brave thing to do, it raises a whole host of questions about water use efficiency in agricultural systems in the Nile Basin, and trade as an alternative to access to water. That is the essential thing about the virtual water. The argument is that, as you said, Wubalem, food security has nothing to do with growing your food. Egypt hasn't grown all its food requirements since the early 1970s. Everyone knows that. You can look at the figures, right? And, the question is, so what do you do with the idea? How do you factor it into all this wonderful modeling going on about numbers of water, amounts of water, where in fact virtual water trade in the basin is probably higher or larger in and out of the basin than the amount of water in the basin. I'm positing that, I don't know, but I would suggest that there are some huge issues here. So it's very brave of you to mention it. The question is, what do you do with it next as a concept in terms of Nile Basin cooperation? Because it is a very, very significant concept to bring into the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we have very specific, now we have three, we'll come to you and then you are in the next. Both of you, the two of you, will join the next of you. So please go ahead. Now, please be very precise and very,
okay. The first question was how do we communicate with decision makers to make them aware of what we are discussing here? I think it's really a gaining concern because our decision makers maybe are not enough exposed to this technical discussion, but we have different avenues. First of all, our technical departments, the water department, technical department, they are very much involved in our governance. And whatever we discuss with them. So hoping that they can communicate with their respective authorities in the countries. That is one. Second, it's maybe now our intention is that we try to make our governance meeting administrative, political, but also technical. Try really to expose them to such results of the different studies, the modeling we have, so that really they are exposed to it and they can influence the decision making. I think this is where we are heading to. And I may accept that this has not been happening. But we hope that really through our technical department, it could happen. Regional cooperation, what has been the initiative? I said that we had a shared vision program at the first stage. But also I think it's a continuous, it's really one of our core function. And we do it, as he said, we moved from the program of shared vision, but towards more, how can we inform our members on issues pertaining to water resource availability, to water resource scarcity, so that they can together try to find solutions. I think this is maybe the step where we are when we moved from the initial shared vision program. Concerning the virtual water, I think I would recognize that this was really a first attempt. And unfortunately, I would say it ended with the regional agriculture trade and productivity project. And I raise it really today purposely to try to see how we can revive it. And I was interested to hear already the different modeling system, what different institutions are doing. And we would be happy really to have such a concept integrated in their modeling so that we can sell it to our member countries. But it's an option really for resolving water security issues.
Thank you. I think we need to reply to the phone question.
Yes, thank you. Let me just I think Mr. Emerson now is here, and we are ready to support that. I think one of the issues of Nile Basin programs, and I felt this when I worked for ENTRO, is how to streamline the activities within the national policies. I think that's a key area that will also help us move the MPI agenda forward. I'm glad that you bring the issue of intergeneration dimension of this water. It has that dimension. And when we talk about sustainability yesterday, sustainability, the definition that is commonly used is that to use the need to meet the need of today without compromising the future generation needs. So this is simply, so the approach is very critical. The approach we talked about this morning, you have to have a clear approach, and that one could also have the dimension of the sustainability has to be there. The balance between economic, social, and environment and ecosystem. I think there is another. I think that's all. Yeah.
Okay. So I think I don't know. Anna, first question before I give you the chance, I want to ask you: should we end it? You came late, everybody. Should we end it at 1 or? Because now we will have 3 booked in the round: yourself, Rami, and Ammar. But at what time do you think we?
I think it will be okay for the
10 minutes. Okay. Then the floor is yours now. You ask for it.
There was a conflict of interest here.
well, no. She gave 10 minutes because there are 5 minutes, and so.
It was not self-interest.
You can see those lawyers. You have really. I told you. Be careful. But you didn't listen to me.
I thought that you only agree as nobody has said no.
I was just making a comment. Legal from a legal angle.
Well, I was insisting to ask the question because it was related to what Alan was just
Please be closer to the microphone.
Sorry. So I was just insisting to ask the question because it was related with what Alan was saying on the virtual water, and I think we should not run away from the question. Toriana also use that sentence very often, saying there is more water entering in the Middle East region as virtual water than it's running down the Nile every year. So, and this gives an idea of how much, well, in particular cereals, but it also now that agricultural products are the Middle East countries, Gulf countries, and the Middle East countries importing. So we have to think, where is it coming from? Because we show the map of the intra-trade, virtual water trade within the region. There is a lot of water going out from the basin to outside. And there is a lot of water, of course, also coming inside. I mean, if we look at the exports of Egypt, of wheat, of meat. So why don't we start thinking about the regional virtual water trade? Increasing trade on agricultural products between the countries of the basin. It's already happening with tea. For example, we have seen that the big arrows are there. Tea, Egypt being a big consumer of tea and buying it mainly from Kenya. It's happening with livestock, from Sudan to Egypt, but why not increasing this? I mean, it's not so difficult. I mean, it's not just about saving water, but increasing the linkage, the economic linkage between the countries. Why to buy rice to Vietnam when rice can be produced, I don't know even where, Uganda or Ethiopia?
Okay, so it is a comment, not a question. Thank you very much. And I can see now Tony Allen is represented by 2 persons in this meeting. My friend, Ammar. Then we'll come to you, Rami, number 3. If you don't have, then Rami, go ahead.
Okay.
Come on, sit here.
Thank you to give me this chance. My first questions go ahead to former ED of ENTRO, Khaled. He mentioned let us thinking and working on more in ideas and concepts, more than the calculation. What do you mean by that? Another thing, I think the overall vision of the Nile Basin, that's to achieve sustainable socio-economic development through the water utilization of and benefit the common Nile Basin water resources. So, from 1999 up to 2016, what have we achieved to mitigate or to bridge the national thinking with the regional cooperation? Yes, the last thing also, I expected one of the papers talking about the role of youth to accelerate the regional cooperation, because we are talking about the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Rami, the floor is yours. Next.
Thank you. Our discussion has been pretty much focused on the Nile Basin, the Nile Basin Initiative as an institution, and the comment and the question at the same time, how does this actually link to the Sustainable Development Goals that were recently approved, and also to the climate negotiation process and what's happening in March and all of that, because it touches Africa as a region, as a continent. And of course, when we talk about all the natural resources within the basin, this links. So, for example, in Egypt, it was the Egypt developed the green economy strategy for water as a sector, for energy as a sector, for agriculture as a sector, and for waste as a sector. And then trying to link that to sustainable production and consumption of water and all of that. So how do we actually link these processes, the global processes, to the sustainability of the resources and use within the basin? And how does the MBI actually link with these, or are these just separate processes? So separate processes that are disconnected.
Okay, so also to say now we have three, but in fact to save time, I will now dictate which question to be taken. Ahmed, you take the first question, which is asking, Anna's thing was a comment. So I would like you, or do you need answer from anybody? No, excellent. So
the first one is idea.
Yes.
Idea concepts from now.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me give you a simple example of ideas and concepts and move it forward. Yesterday, Dr. Salman gave a very good long analysis of the history of this cooperation, legal issues, and at the end he came with good proposal for the way forward. This is an idea. How now to take it forward for operationalizing, make it operational, go to the decision maker, elaborating it. The other issue also, this morning we had a very good presentation with the girl. Many things came out, calculations and everything. We have it now as in our back. Now, how can we have those key messages and key conclusions? How we move it for make it operational? This is the idea. So I think we had enough studies and everything, but we never make it decision-making arguments. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we will give these two questions to answer to us. The first one is what NPI achieved in that few years which he asked for, and the role of youth.
Yeah. Okay, what has NPI achieved? I tried to show in my slides a very brief outline in terms of capacity building, in terms of knowledge building, in terms of preliminary investments, like I mentioned. In the midst of very complex hydropolitical evolving situation, you should not forget that. And institution building is not, you can see even negotiations in many river basins. It has taken 40, 50, 70 years. I think we should also take into account that this is a process. About sustainable development goals and the climate change negotiations. For example, is it not a shame now, here at Nile Basin, we have so many projects going on, but we have never accessed the clean development mechanism and the carbon finance. The biggest users are China and India, simply because we are not prepared. We tried to do climate change strategy at ENTRO, and yet we have a void. That's why you need this cooperation. Because if the countries pull together and they streamline their projects, we could have accessed good financing mechanisms. This is just one example to tell you why it is important. The other thing is, I just want to mention a small thing. The disconnect between, not disconnect, but the loose link between science, knowledge generation on the one hand and policy making. By the way, this is not unique to the Nile Basin. You go everywhere, in the US, in Europe. It's not the best science that results in the best decision making. There is also a huge disconnect. But this is a perennial problem. But I think what we can do here is, again, confidence building. The media has a very important role in enabling policymakers to make bold decisions. There are received notions, very ossified, outdated ideas about many things regarding the Nile and water resources and utilization and what we do. And my friend Rondosen talks about hydro mentality. We need to change that, and we need to embolden our leaders to embark on more decisive decision making. And I think the media has still untapped potential by disseminating very important information upwards to policymakers and downwards to the population. This is, again, there is a huge gap in this area, a lot to be done.
Okay, thank you very much. You didn't say something about the use, but you said it. No?
Well, I'm past that age, so I leave it to younger people to answer this.
Yes, I think we need use. Maybe Innocence would come in half a minute to tell us about it. I think you answered MBI and links to SDGs. Yes, you said it in a way. Anything about the use, Mr. Director?
Maybe let me say something on SDGs. It's just for your information. We are now preparing our 10 years strategy. And really, we are linking it directly to SDG, especially SDG 6 and 6.5, which talk about transboundary area. We are really very much aligned to that. But my concern is how shall we receive input from Egypt, the strategy? So I think we need, again, to discuss that. Okay. For the youth, I think we have a stakeholder involvement program. And maybe in the past it has not been really focused to youth, but we realize that for sustainability, youth must be involved now. And really, this is part of the next action. For example, next week we are having a training for media, but also where youth will be represented.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think this would be the last round. It should be short. And maybe you are the only one who put your hand, so it may be a round from one person. No, nobody? So please go ahead. And you know, even if it is over the time, and even if Anna looked strongly and Yasir towards me, I will give you the chance. Because I'm coming from UNESCO, and gender is a priority. So please.
Thank you, but I'm still considered gender. I've been here for so much time, so sometimes the gender matter is already done. Well, I have two comments and requests. The first one is regarding virtual water and cross-border trade in the Nile Basin. I'd like to add that there is a project in the pipeline called VicMed, the Victoria Mediterranean Navigation and Route, which is supposed to be a very ambitious project in order to enhance cross-border trade between the Nile Basin countries. So it's not implemented under the NDI, but I believe that this is a very good project that will have its positive impact on the trade between the Nile Basin countries. This is one thing. The other thing, I wished so much to be one of the countries that were supposed to know the products of the NDI that have been presented. This is a request. I'm requesting it officially. We have already done it. I'm requesting it again. If nobody has any objection on it, to have access to the products of the NDI, because only what we can reach is what's on the website, and all what is sent to us is the Nile Basin radar, the NELSAT progress reports, some of the minutes and some not. So I believe that we we have this right to have access to this information. It's very painful to know about the Nile Basin from a meeting, and the product from a meeting. It's very, very sorry for me. The other thing is when we talk about virtual water and we talk about unconventional water, we have to take into account once again when we are doing our plans on the regional level, the green water as well. We have to account it properly. Many exercises have been done outside of the NDI. It can be used. Maybe FAO has done something. It needed to be revisited. We know this. Many other entities as well. I believe that UNESCO IHE had done something in water accounting as well in the Nile Basin. So green water has to be considered as resources of the Nile Basin. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for the comment and the information. For the other request, I will give this to Entrance. Tell you, I'm sure he will say, oh, welcome. I don't know what he will say.
Okay, I think there was somehow comment, but just about sharing the reports. I think we had received a formal request. We are considering it, and this can be maybe a first step towards really sharing more information and also participating in our activities.
Why don't you just put them in the website for everybody?
Okay, most of the documents are on the website, but maybe she's talking about minutes of our governance meeting. But otherwise, the atlas is on the IS, everything is on IS.
I'd like to...
Because of the time, you know.
No, just to reply. What is there is already what's finalized after consulting the countries. So anything that is in the pipeline, sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. This is what I'm requesting. Not the final product, because usually in our situation, the final product contains information that are just grabbed from the internet view of this freezing situation.
Okay, so we'll leave it if you can talk with each other after that. I think it's a good idea.
Bilaterally.
Yeah, bilaterally. Welcome. So I think if there is no, there's always a chance for also discussing during the lunch, and I'm sure most of you are hungry. If there is no announcement, is there any announcement other than lunch?
Yes, there is an
Yasir,
there will be a group picture just before lunch.
Okay.
So
Then
put your best smile.
like at the end,
so that we are all cooperative here.
we look forward for that group lunch. But before we go to lunch, I would like to thank those great friends near me and also my thanks are to you also, all of you, for really participating very actively. And I'd like to thank Anna and Yasir and COA and Rimi and HRC for really inviting me for this meeting, and I wish you also a very good thank you.